Your website represents a significant investment in both time and money. And if it's working well, it also represents a significant flow of clients to your business. So as a business owner, I think it's important that you understand some very basic things about how your website works. Specifically, we're going to be talking about WordPress, but it doesn't matter what platform you're on. Everything we're talking about basically is going to still apply. So your domain name, your www.whatever.com, is an asset that you own, that you can buy and sell, and you can own more than one. You can own dozens of domain names. So first thing we need to make sure is that that domain name is actually owned by you. So if you've paid somebody else to buy one for you and set this up, the domain name that you're using, you may not own. So that's the first step, is to understand that who owns the domain name and make sure it's you. Second thing is we have to host our domain name someplace. So there's a domain host. It could be GoDaddy, HostGator. I use Bluehost, but it's a host in which we park that domain name. And so when somebody types in www.whatever.com, it's going to go to that host, and that host is going to tell that person's browser where your website physically is located. So wherever your host is, whether it be GoDaddy or Bluehost or whatever, you need to understand that that is hosting your website, your data. You need to be an administrator there, and you also have to have your own username and password for that as well. And you need to know where that is. So again, if you paid somebody to set this up for you, that may not be in your name. And that's going to be a huge problem when that person disappears, whether they unfortunately die in a car crash or you and them have a falling out, or they go and get a new job and they disappear on you. It's going to be a huge problem. And I've got one website loaded up right now that we've got that problem with right now, is somebody else set it all up. We don't even know who that person is. It's a big problem. It's a significant issue. So understand, you need to own the domain name. You also need access and administration rights to the host. The WordPress site, or whatever website you have, can be hosted on the host, but it can also be hosted anywhere else. It doesn't really matter. 90% of the time, it will be hosted at the same place that your domain is. If your website's got significant traffic or you've got international traffic, it may not be on the same server, but 90% of the time, your host is going to host your website and your domain name. Now we're going to talk about WordPress. Although WordPress represents probably about 80% of the websites out there are built on a WordPress platform, it doesn't have to be. It can be on any other platform. If you are a WordPress website, just type in your domain name /wp-login and you'll get the login screen. This login screen, you should be using your admin name and your password. Don't be sharing. You can create unlimited users. I'll show you that in a second. When you log into WordPress, you're going to get this screen, and it's going to be a little bit overwhelming and maybe terrifying if you're not used to it. But I'm going to walk you through some of the stuff that you're going to need today. Again, I'm not going to make you a web designer. That's not the point here. But on the left-hand side, you get the menu bar. The menu bar is going to look different for every single website you log into, depending on what features and functions they've got running on their WordPress site. So WordPress in general is kind of like your iPhone. It's just a platform in which we run apps. So your iPhone itself is useless. It does absolutely nothing other than host and run applications. So even the phone function within your phone, within your iPhone, is just an application that Apple's put on there for you to be able to make incoming and outgoing calls. WordPress is the same thing. It really doesn't do a lot without adding things to it. So instead of apps, WordPress calls them plugins. As you can see here, we have plugins here. And that's all WordPress really does, is it runs plugins and it runs different applications that we've installed onto it. When you first log in, you can see here it's going to show you the updates, and anything with a red number in it is something that requires updates. So you've got 9 plugins that require updates. You got 14 updates in general. So WordPress, the plugins, your themes, everything within WordPress on a regular basis needs updated. The updates close hacker backdoors. It prevents you from getting malware. It makes it so your website will work on new and modern technology. So when a new iPhone comes out, WordPress will have to do an update so that it will work on the new iPhones. If you're not doing updates, your website's not going to work properly on certain platforms. It's going to represent a significant security risk, and it may just stop working altogether eventually, just like your old iPhone stops working because you can't update it anymore. So whoever's managing your website, whether it be you or somebody else, needs to be coming in here and doing these updates on a consistent, regular basis. That's not happening on this website. We've got 14 updates that need done, 9 for plugins. So that's one of the things as a business owner you need to do. Make sure that whoever's administering your website is doing updates. Now, WordPress works on the principle of themes, so I'm going to go into themes here. The theme is what makes your website look the way it looks and functions. The functions kind of come off plugins, but the overall look of the website comes off of themes. And there are thousands upon thousands of themes. Some of them are free, some you pay for, but there's thousands of them. Right now, this is the theme that you've got that's active. So this is the theme that's telling your WordPress website to look a certain way. Also, you've got 3 other themes installed on your WordPress website that are not active. These are deactivated WordPress themes. Now, generally speaking, you do not want things on your WordPress site that are not being used. So if you've got themes that are not being used, they need to be removed from the website. Why? Number one, it creates a security risk. So malware and certain hackers and stuff, they don't necessarily go after WordPress. They go after themes and plugins within WordPress. So a hacker has the ability to potentially break into your WordPress through one of these back doors that you've now left open. They need to be removed. An argument could be made that you need a backup theme, potentially. I don't know if I buy that argument, but it could be made. But I don't think you need 3 backup themes. So whoever is administering your website needs to understand that these are not to be left open. They need to be gone off of there. It's slowing down your website and it's unnecessary content. But you do need 1 theme, which you've got, and you seem to be happy with. Keep it. Let's talk about plugins. Plugins are the same concept as themes. You've got dozens of them installed on here. Some of them are active and some are deactive. You can deactivate something or you can remove it completely. Again, if it's a plugin that you're not using, it needs to be removed from your website. Again, it represents a security risk and it's slowing down your website. Themes are what creates the functionality within your website. You need some plugins are what creates the functionality within your website. You need some plugins, you can't avoid them, but too many plugins will slow down your website and create a security risk. So you need to have that kind of that juggling point in between where you have just the right amount and only things you're using. So when I look at your plugins here, like Hello Dolly is the default that comes with WordPress, which I can almost guarantee you're not using, but it's still installed and active on your website. So it's taking up resources, it's slowing down your website, and it's creating a security risk, and it probably doesn't need to be there. And it's causing you administration problems because look at all these plugins that need to be updated. So understand that with themes, you only want the themes that make sense and that need to be there. If they don't need to be there, remove them. If you're not using them, get rid of them, if that makes sense. When we go to do updates, it's as simple as clicking a few buttons and letting it run. But generally speaking, I wouldn't do an update until I backed up the website first, because just like your iPhone, some updates are not compatible with some versions of the plugins. So you'll update WordPress, but now you'll have plugins that no longer function properly because they're not compatible with the new update. So it can really cause some major problems doing updates. So make sure you back it up first, because then you can always go back to the way it was. But understand that that's part of the challenge of administering a website is you're going to do an update and 3 plugins are going to stop working. Now you're going to have to go out and find some new plugins. Some of these plugins are probably obsolete and need to be replaced with something modern and fresh anyways. So your website is going to require ongoing maintenance, plain and simple, if that makes sense. Okay, let's talk about users. And this applies to your WordPress site or any website. It also applies to your domain host. You have the ability to create users and user roles within all these platforms. So I can come in here and create a new user here. And I can create different roles for that user. And depending on the plugins and the platform you're on, I have the ability to customize what those roles can and can't do. So never ever share your username and password with anybody. Just come in here and create a new one for them. It's simple. I log in, I hit user, I add new user, type in their name, password, done, and it'll email them, and off they go. You need to be an administrator of all of your digital assets, your domain and your website. You need to be an administrator. But not everybody does, right? If you've got somebody who's helping add or make some changes to your website and stuff, there's no reason why you can't make them, instead of an administrator, an editor, right? So they'll be able to change and add and modify content, but they don't have the ability to delete you as a user. Because as an administrator, I have the ability to delete you as a user. That's not going to be good for you. So think about what rights you're giving them. An argument could be made to make them administrator. Great. Okay, whatever. But because you've got different users, you can always come in and delete a user after you've terminated their contract. If you and your web person has a falling out, you can delete them. Boom. Done. They no longer have access. So this is why it's important that you give everybody their own access so that you can delete somebody when it's time to go. Make sense? I'm going to show you a couple things on a couple other websites here. This particular website, the person who set up this website is for our local Cub Scouts. The person who set this up, we don't even know who this person is. And this person set everything up in their name with their email, and we can't change anything now. It's a significant problem. You can see here we've got multiple, and it's same theme as yours, as the last one there. But we've got multiple. Like, it's just a poorly administered website. There's updates that need to be done that aren't being done. It's bad. There's issues, but I specifically want to show you one plugin. Now, I don't really care if you use this plugin or what plugins you use, because those things change. But the concept is the same. This particular plugin does backups of your website. Now, your website, if we look down here, represents the website itself, the databases. So if you have an e-commerce or something like that, it's going to back up those. It's also going to back up all your plugins. It's going to back up your themes and any uploads and any other things that you do. So this particular app or this particular plugin does weekly backups to an off server account. So this particular backup is being stored on a Google Drive someplace. Why it's important to be off the server is if you do get a malware, it is possible for the malware to infect your backups as well, because they're all on the same server. That could be bad. So this plugin is doing weekly updates. Every 4th week, it deletes, overwrites the previous 4th week one, if that makes sense. So it's only storing up to 4 weeks at a time. So instead of having 52 updates a year, it's only going to store me 4. But you can set these to whatever you want. You can update daily and keep only 10. You can update daily and keep 50, whatever you want. So make sure that you are backing up your website somehow, whether you're doing it automatically with a plugin or you're doing it manually. Make sure whoever's administering your website is backing them up so that when things go bad, you have a recourse. Let's look at this one. Here's the theme that this website's running. So it's a totally different theme. It's going to look and feel totally different than your website. A couple plugins that need to be updated and a couple comments that need to be addressed. So easy peasy. So that's kind of WordPress for a business owner, things you need to understand, the things you need to be responsible for. Make sure that you've got administration rights and passwords for both the website and the domain. Make sure that you're not handing out your username and password. Create new ones if you need to. Make sure the updates are being done. Make sure unnecessary plugins are being done. Make sure your theme is up to date and running good. Another one that I want to touch bases on is media. So media is going to be the videos, the downloadable contents, the pictures, the images, audio. You can store all of that within your WordPress site. Generally speaking, we want to store large media files off-site in a different location and have your website go there for that information. Storing them on your WordPress site is going to slow your WordPress site significantly down. And if it's downloadable content, it's going to create a security risk. So we want to make sure that we only upload media to our WordPress site. As a general rule of thumb, just the pictures and the graphics and stuff. But just like plugins and other things we talked about, you need to delete things that aren't being used. So we can see here there's numerous duplicate pictures and images that are being used that are, I think they're identical. Maybe they're not. I don't know. You'll have to talk to your designer about that. But anything that's a duplicate should be removed off of the website. It's going to slow down your website. It's going to cause issues. With pictures, we want to make sure that they're optimized for your WordPress site. So having a giant photo that WordPress is compressing down is bad. It's going to slow down your load time. It's going to slow down the performance of the website. And it's going to increase unnecessary traffic load on your server, which is going to cause you negative effects all the way across the board. So make sure when we are uploading media to our WordPress site that it is optimized for a WordPress site, if that makes sense. Perfect. So that's basically WordPress for business owners. I mean, you can, if you want to learn how to modify and change content within WordPress, there's a million YouTube videos for that of how to do that. It's something that is designed to be kind of user-friendly in a lot of ways. You know, there are things you can do to break it, but if you are interested in that, you can definitely learn that. But generally speaking, this is what I feel like every business owner needs to understand, what we just talked about.